Hey everyone, it's another video from the Gabulator here. I figured we'd try to cover something a little bit more on the complicated side. And if you guys have any videos you want me to cover a specific kind of problem, you can shoot me a problem or ask me and it's like, hey, I'm having trouble with this specific concept. Can you make a video about that? Yes. Yes, I can. It's very easy to find sample problems on the internet. All I do for these videos is I just Google something and I'm like, hey, I want to do this kind of math. Let's make a video about it. I Google it, I find a problem, like, oh, I want to do that one. And then I film it. That's all I do. This is fun for me. I'm one of those weird people that likes doing math. All right, so this one's a little bit more complicated. You'll notice we've got something everybody loves, sarcasm here, fractions, and then not an equal sign, but a greater or less than sign. All right, so we just know in the beginning, we're going to pretend this isn't equals, so because everybody gets confused when they see one of these little carrots, or like gator mouse, depends on what school you went to growing up. Gator mouse, carrot sticks, whatever. You know, whatever you want to call it. Everybody gets confused when they see these, so we're going to pretend it's just an equal sign in disguise for the purpose of solving the problem, and we'll only come back to this once we've got an answer. Okay? So we're going to rewrite it with an equal sign. Because even just seeing that makes people breathe easier. And you're like, oh, okay, less stressful. I don't know why, but the thing, the carrot, the gator, makes me stressed out. All right. So, whoops, equals 0. Boom. Okay, now here's the thing. We've got 2x plus 4 on the top and x squared plus 4x minus 21 on the bottom. So what we're going to do is we're going to deal with this in pieces. We're going to deal with the top part first and then the bottom part. So let's just focus on the top. Okay, because what we're going to do with both parts is we're going to break them down so they're not one big giant chunk. Okay, because breaking into smaller pieces helps people see what they need to do next. Because when people see it all in one big thing here, they're like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. But if you break it down, they go, oh, I see where you're going. All right, so I've just got the top here all by itself. Now, in my last video, we took apart a problem by pulling an x out of both terms. Now, in this case, that's called pulling out the greatest common factor, the GCF. In English, that just means find something both of them have and take it away. And like in my example in my last video, if you see two kids fighting over something, you take it away. Alright, these are our two kids we're babysitting. We're just looking to see what they're both have in common so we can take it away from them. We're a very mean babysitter. Alright, so we can't pull an x out of both of these because 4 doesn't have an x, so that wouldn't be fair. But both of them are divisible by 2, so we're going to pull a 2 out. But the 2 doesn't disappear, it just goes outside. It's going in timeout. So we're going to pull a 2 outside. 2x divided by 2 just gives us x. It doesn't just become 0. A lot of people make that mistake. That x still remains. Alright, it's just a 1x. 2 divided by 2 is just 1, so it's just a 1x. Now 4 divided by 2 is just 2. So we've got 2 and then x plus 2. Now that is as simplified as we can get it. So we're going to move on to the bottom part, but we're going to keep this up here because we're going to bring it down in a moment. Now we've got x squared plus 4x minus 21. All right, this is the bottom part. Now, here's the thing. I'm going to show you guys the way I solve quadratics because we're going to have to factor this. You can solve any quadratic with the quadratic formula, the negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. You can solve any quadratic with that. In factoring, you can only solve some problems with. For the most part with problems like these, about 9 times out of 10, you can do it just with factoring. I can do these quick, but I'm going to do it quick right here because the focus right now isn't teaching you how to factor. I'll cover that in another video if you guys want. I'm going to do this quickly and I'm not going to spend forever showing you guys how I factor. I'm just going to do it. Alright? Because if you're coming at this point, I'm assuming you already know how to factor. Alright? So I'm going to set up 2 parentheses. Okay? My variable is x. I put an x on both sides. Okay, now thankfully I don't have a number here in front of my leading term, the x squared, so I'm just going to look at my back one. I can do all this in my head, but for your sake, I'm going to write it down. My last term is negative 21. So I need two terms that multiply to negative 21, but when I add them together, get me positive 4. Okay, and it's negative, so one of these is going to be a negative, one is going to be positive. Can always do 1 and the number. Can't be divided by 2. We've got 3 and 7. Those are my only multiples, so this is pretty easy. Now if I do 21 and 1, that will either get me a 22 or a 20. Okay? If both were positive, or if one was negative and one was positive. Alright, now that could either be a positive 20 or a negative 20, but we need a 4. So this combination is out. Okay, now we've got 3 and 7. That's looking like it'll get us somewhere. We need one of these to be negative. Do we need a negative 3 and a positive 7, or a negative 7 and a positive 3? In this case, it's going to be a negative 3 and a positive 7. Because negative 3 and positive 7 gets us a positive 4. If we add a negative 7 and a positive 3, that would get us a negative 4. But we need positive 4, so this is the combination. So when we break down x squared plus 4x minus 21, we get x minus 3 and x plus 7. Okay? Now we're going to rewrite our equation. So we've got 2 and x plus 2 on the top. Okay, and then we've got x minus 3 and then x plus 7 over here. Okay? All right. And then we've got equals 0. All right, so at this point, what we would look for is we would see if there was anything we could cancel that could help us out. All right? And in this case, we don't have anything we can cancel. We've got a 2, nothing to match that with, an x plus 2, nothing to match that with, x minus 3, nothing to match that with. You get the point here. So a lot of people will get to this point and say, well, I'm stumped. I don't know what to do. Okay, well, we're just going to take a second and look it over again. All right, we still need to find out an answer for x. Okay. And I'll edit this out later, so I'm going to sit here myself because I'm rusty. Got it. Okay, so I probably did a real quick cut there because I myself had to sit here for a moment and stare at it and go through all my options in my head and be like, all right, I haven't done this in a while. What do I do? All right, so here's the process I went through. We need to make this a true statement. All equations are you're trying to get your one part of the equation to match the other part. We're trying to get this whole big mess to equal 0. All right, now, and I'll show this in a short, so watch out for the short that's coming up. There's a rule with fractions. You can never have a 0 on the bottom, but you can always have a 0 on the top. So we're trying to get not the bottom part to make out to be 0, but the top part to make out to be 0. All right, so we're going to ignore that bottom part. Okay? Now we've got 2 and then x plus 2. You probably can't see that because of there. Now you can see it because of the shadow. I realized I could see it, but you guys can't see it because the shadow appears a lot darker on video. We've got 2 and then x plus 2. What is a number that we could plug in here to make this 0? So when we have 2, we can multiply it by 0 because 0 property, anything times 0 is 0. All right, well, what's the opposite of 2? Negative 2. So if we say x is equal to negative 2, what will that get us? Okay, we'll have 2 and then negative 2 plus 2 over negative 2 minus 3, and then negative 2 plus 7. Now I say the bottom part isn't going to matter, and I'll show you why. Because of the 0 over a number, it's just going to end up being 0 anyway, but I'll show you the math anyway. But when I do these problems, I just immediately X out the bottom because I know it won't exist. All right, when you're good at math, you can sometimes skip steps, but not a good habit. All right, so -2 plus 2, that gets us 0, times 2. And then on the bottom, we've got -2 minus 3 is -5, times -2 plus 7 gets us +5. Okay, so 2 times 0 gets us 0, and then -5 times 5 gets us not 0, because we're multiplying here, not adding. It's -25. 0 divided by any number is simply just 0. All right, so we're going to go back up here. So this, if we did -2, it did get us to 0. So 0 did actually end up being technically less than 0. But since this is less than, we need to figure out if we need to include numbers after -2 or before -2 in order to get our future answers to be less than 0. We know this is the tipping point, okay? But we need to know if we need to go -3, -4, -5, or if we need to go in the -1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 direction. All right, so in this case, you just test numbers. So let's try x equals -1. Why not? Because I don't even know. The only way you know is to test. All right, so let's do it again. 2 and then -1 plus 2. Okay, and then -1 minus 3, and -1 plus 7. Okay, this is what our equation looks like. We're just going to add all this up and then multiply. So we've got 2 times -1 plus 2, which is just 1, over -1 minus 3 is -4. And then -1 plus 7 is 6. Okay, so we've got 2 times 1 is 2, over -4 times 6, which is a -24. And then 2 divided by -24 ends up reducing to -1 over 12. Okay, now is -1 over 12 less than 0? Yes, it is, because any negative number is by definition less than 0. Okay, so if we were to look at a number line, here's our 0. We know -2 is our point. Okay? And interval notation here, I'll cover this in the video in more depth if you guys want. This is simply less than, not less than or equal to, so it's going to be an open circle. We know we're going to pause here, but is it going to be an arrow going to the right and including more negative numbers? Or is it an arrow going to the left including more positive numbers? Okay? We tested a number. We tested -1, which is right here. Okay, so I was testing to see if the arrow would go to the right. Okay, because in this direction to the right includes more and more positive numbers. It ended up making a true statement. Check. So, since our -1 test ended up making a true statement of -1 over 12 is less than 0, then we know the rest of our numbers are going to be going this direction. And you might be asking, okay, well, how do you know the rest is going to be going like that? The arrow is going to be here either way. The arrow is either on the left or on the right of -2. And if it wasn't on the right, then this -1 would have made a false statement. So we know, oh, well, it can't be that. It's got to be the other direction. Okay, but it's a 50-50 shot. I happen to pick the right one. So we know our answer is going to end up being -2, comma, infinity, comma. Not comma, sorry, parentheses. Parentheses, -2, comma, infinity. That is our answer. Thanks, guys. I know there's a lot of stuff covered in this video. If you guys need more in-depth explanations of interval notations or how I'm doing the factoring and stuff, just let me know. Like I said, right now I'm just Googling concepts and then filming myself doing the problems and trying to explain them as best as I can in a short time frame. So if you have any more things you want me to do, let me know. Otherwise, I'll just keep picking random things I want to do. Thanks.